Welcome, everyone, to the L7C Podcast MMA edition. Today, we are going to be getting you ready for UFC 280, update you on what's been going on in the UFC since we have been gone. We have our MMA expert with us, Mr. Chuck Marlowe. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing as good as you can if you got COVID.
Oh man. COVID again? Or is this your first time getting it?
Second time. We avoided it for like 3 years or however long it was going on. We avoided it since the beginning. We got it back like at the Put in Bay time. After Put in Bay, we got
Mhm.
it. And then now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we got it.
Well, here's to hoping you guys beat it once again.
Thank
But
you. Thank you.
no problem. But Chuck, man, there's been some things going on in the UFC since we've been gone. So what we're gonna do is Chuck's gonna give you some updates real quick on what's going on in UFC, recap some of UFC 279, the big fight, since he wasn't able to do that. And then he's gonna preview 280, then we'll go from there. So Chuck, the floor is yours.
All right. So a lot has happened. I think the last podcast we were talking about UFC 279, which was back in September 10th, which is like a month ago
Mm-hmm.
today, pretty much almost a little bit over. And that fight, well, I'm going to start off there, and then we're going to work our way up to Gain versus Tuivasa. I'm only going to highlight a few fights on some of those cards and highlight the big fights with certain cards. So, like, originally it was supposed to be Diaz versus fucking Khamzat Chimaev. Obviously, we know this. Chimaev missed weight, all the drama with that, the fallout. It's like 13 pounds over or 11 pounds over, and it just sparked controversy. All the UFC fans hate Chimaev, but after the performance he gave, people still hate him. But it's kind of like, man, this guy is fucking freaking nature out here, and the man's a freaking legend with the way that he just beat Kevin Hahn the way he did. Um, so I'm gonna highlight the two top fights on that card. Obviously, Khamzat versus Chimaev, Khamzat versus Holland. That fight was wild. I mean, I really wanted Holland. I think everyone was rooting for Kevin Holland in that fight. There's no one who was rooting for Chimaev. I mean, there's probably some countrymen for Chimaev rooting for him in his corner, but like the way he disgraced the whole MMA by missing weight and just not giving a single flying fuck about how he
Mm-hmm.
missed weight. I think it was absurd, and I hated it. I'm disgusted by it. His performance, though, that's a way to make up for it a little bit, but I'm still not buying in right now. I'm still upset, still not very happy with the way he was doing it. But starting off the fight, this man came out and pushed a tempo like no other. He went out there and he went for that. I think it was a single leg, and then he went to high crotch. I'm pretty sure, and he just was trying to take Holland down, and Holland was like trying his hardest, and Holland actually was doing pretty good in his takedown defense, but Chimaev was like, when I talk about Charles Oliveira and how he won his belt on that fight where he missed weight and he came and he fought like he was on a mission to prove people like, hey, I missed weight, fuck y'all, I got this, I'm gonna win. Like no matter what happens to me, I'm gonna win, and that's what Chimaev did here. I mean, he pushed an unrelentless pace, and if he can push a pace like that at that division, and he can push and keep pressing people and putting on pressure and getting takedowns and just choking someone out the way he did to Holland, because he straight out ragdolled Kevin Holland. He made Kevin Holland look like, so if I went to my daughter right now and I picked her up and started throwing her around, like that's what he did. Like this man threw him around like a baby, and it was absurd. I didn't think it was going to end that way. I thought Kevin Holland, with the way the beef was, it was going to come out there and fight back and maybe even win. Like that's what I thought, but he didn't, and so we'll see how that works out for Holland in the future. I think he was talking about maybe even retiring. If you beat somebody that bad, and even thinking and contemplating about retirement, it's kind of nuts. Then we're going to go up to Nate Diaz versus Tony Ferguson,
Mm-hmm.
battle of the old heads. Oh my gosh, what a fucking fight. It was a great fight. Like, honestly, people are like, oh, these are two old washed dudes. Yes, they're old, they're washed, their stamina is fucking terrible. Nate Diaz, lay off the fucking weed. In the words of Stephen A. Smith, because my man has no lungs underneath him. This man was out of breath. Like, they literally used the SpongeBob meme with him hanging up on the wall outside. That's the first time I've ever seen a fight, other than the one fight where I can't remember who it was, and he was putting his hands on his knees and he was out of breath. I talked about it on the last podcast, I remember. But like I've never seen someone get so gassed in a fight, and conditioning is just terrible. But hey, he got performance of the night. He got his win in the fourth round by submission. He walks out of the cage a winner, like I expected. And I hope the best for him. He's talking about maybe doing some boxing. Hey, Nate, Conor McGregor even reached out to him, potentially wants to try and get some type of rematch going in that division or within the realm of boxing, even. He's going to start his own promotion. So I hope the best for Nate. I love Nate. Nate is Stockholm's finest, Stockton's finest. He is a legend to the UFC. I can't wait till he gets that Hall of Fame gold jacket because he'll get it. He deserves it. And for Tony Ferguson, I think it's getting time to get ready to hang those gloves up because if you lose to Nate Diaz, who hasn't fought in like I don't know how long, I can't even remember off the top of my head. It was versus Leon Edwards was his last fight, which maybe was a year or so ago, maybe even more. Um, so to lose to somebody who has no stamina like that, and to lose in that fashion, don't get me wrong, Nate Diaz fights better when he's tired. I don't know why. It's just he fights better when he's tired, because when his defense is more up. But Tony Ferguson needs to reevaluate his career and see what's best for him in his next move. But moving away from that card,
I do want to ask you something,
oh, yeah.
Chuck, because if that's Nate Diaz's, if it's truly his last fight, what do you say about? You say he's going to be a Hall of Famer, which I agree. Like overall, how would you just equate his legacy?
So he his legacy is I don't know. So his legacy is also kind of tied in with his brother. I'm not gonna say his brother and him made themselves, but like you also have to think they both came out around the same time. They both were dominating, and I just think if you look at his wins, the people who he fought against, think about the moments he's had. Conor McGregor, like this is probably will go down as one of the best moments in UFC history, at least to me, because how much I love Nate Diaz. Conor McGregor was the hottest thing out. Conor McGregor was riding his wave. Conor McGregor was unstoppable, undefeated, and just everyone was raving. Conor McGregor, this man was taking the world by storm. Literally, fans around the world, they started buying into MMA. And this man, Nate Diaz, said, you know what? You guys are counting me out. You guys are kind of underselling me, like thinking that I'm a joke. And this man went out there and beat him. And in the second fight, honestly, if you go and ask other people, I think Nate Diaz beat him in the second fight too. If you look at the resume of fighters that this man has fought, and like the times, like he was one of the first. He wasn't the first, but he was one of the people to win the Ultimate Fighter Contender Series. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
this man has just a different type of pedigree to him, and just the Stockton slap, the toughness, the bloody fights, just the legendary fights that he puts on. Gets beat up, but gets tired, and still gets the win. So it's just that he has that dog in him, and that dog in him is what everyone loves about him. And that's one reason why he will go down as a legend in the UFC. When you look at UFC legends, they have that dog in them. They figure out a way to pull out a win, no matter how stacked the odds are against them.
Gotcha. Shout out to Nate Diaz and his legendary career. Chuck, where you want to go to next, man?
I'm just gonna highlight the Corey Sandhagen versus Song Yadong. I'm not gonna go too long on this one because it wasn't that eventful of a card or a fight for most people. I mean, it's gonna shift some rank. There's no rankings tied next to their names, but it's gonna shift some things up for future fights and things like that. I think Sandhagen came in as a favorite to win this fight. If you look at the strike, it was 130 to 130 split down the middle. Song Yadong actually had the higher percentage in landing, which was 58%. He also was 2 of 2 on takedowns, while Corey Sandhagen was 1 for 14, which is nuts. He just pushed a better pace and had more significant strikes in that fight, which is why that's why it ended in a stoppage, because the cut on Song Yadong, I don't know if you saw, it was on his like forehead, upper temple area, and it was just a huge giant gash for one of those elbows from Sandhagen. So man has brutal elbows. He's a long, lanky fighter in that division. I think he's 6'3", 6'4", and he's like in that bantamweight division. So that's a lot of height and not a lot of weight, but he is bony type of guy. So look out for him to cut more fighters up like that. Hopefully Sandhagen can get back on track to where he was before he started that losing streak he had. And we'll see what works out for Song Yadong also in the future. So I hope the best for both of those fighters, but it wasn't super crazy card, but it shapes up a thing. You get to see a few future fighters and get to get some names that you've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on, I'm just going to go straight into this one because this one was kind of funny to me and it was interesting. Mark Zuckerberg, he bought out the UFC Apex. They didn't allow anybody in there, nobody at the fight. It was Mackenzie Dern versus Xiaonan Yan. And that was a 5-round fight. It was actually a pretty good fight. So, I mean, not too many people know about the women's strawweight fighters. So I think it was a great fight to put on display, and I think it was a good one. Mackenzie Dern, I love her style of fighting just because she reminds me. I can't think of the guy's name. I think it's Corey something, or they call him the Wizard. But it's just that style of going straight to your back and trying to take down your defender from your back. And you see it a lot in those Brazilian jiu-jitsu, judo, just a lot of those people who have a lot of great ground game. And they're like, you know what? I don't care if you get the takedown. I know if I get you here on the ground, this is my realm and I'm going to submit you somehow and I will choke you out. I will break a limb or I will do something from the ground. Yeah, I think it was a very entertaining fight. I know she lost the fight. But if you want to take a look at it down the middle, it was 224 total strikes to 151 in the favor of Mackenzie. She also landed the higher percentage. She had 2 for 11 takedowns, 2 submission attempts. None of them completed, obviously, 2 reversals. But where it really came down to was the power shots. The Yan had 113 significant strikes compared to Dern's 61. So a lot of Dern's strikes were just little touches, points. That's what you want to do. Sometimes there's fighters that just like getting points. But it didn't do much for her right there in the end, though. So I hope the best for Mackenzie Dern because it's one of those fighters you love watching because they're different. They do something that's different. And so for Mark Zuckerberg to go to an event like that, see some of those fighters, I think it was interesting. It was just random. It was a random thing to happen because when you see a headline saying Mark Zuckerberg buys out Apex, like, why is he buying it out for? And like, it was just a random thing, but it was a good overall fight. Sucks that no fans got to be there for it. We'll see how both of their futures shape out Dern and Yan in that strawweight division as they look to fight some of those fighters in that division. I'm trying to think. Women's strawweight division, you're looking at Carla Esparza, Rose Namajunas, and Zhang Weili. They're still not even in the rankings yet, so we'll see if they can get up there with time.
So with the Zuckerberg thing, like, I didn't know he was a UFC fan like that to rent out the whole place so that no one else can go but him. Like, I didn't know he was that big a fan.
Yeah, so I know there's been videos shown of him in the UFC Apex, and in some UFC gyms actually working out, training with fighters. I mean, if you got that much money, I would want to learn how to fight too. So that way, if someone ever tried to rob me or kidnap me, I could at least try and defend myself. So I think it's kind of a good avenue for him. But yeah, so there's a lot of interesting celebrity fans of the UFC. Donald Trump, one of them. Dana White's main man, almost. So there's a lot of notable names and billionaire people. Like, to shoot. Next thing you know, Jeff Bezos is going to be trying to promote UFC on Amazon. Don't be surprised if that happens one day.
Okay, fair enough. Chuck, we do have a UFC event coming up October 22nd, UFC 280. So, Chuck, what are matches people need to be looking out for? What matches are you going to be watching? Who are the stars of this card? What is this card about?
Oh, man, where the hell do I start? October 22nd, Saturday, Etihad Arena in Yas Island in UAE, United Aries Emiratis, if you don't know what that stands for, out in the Middle East, in the desert. This is going to be a loaded ass card. I I looked at this card up and down numerous times ever since it's been made, and this is just going to be such a beautiful fucking card if everything plays out right. I you have Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev, number 1 versus number 4. Oliveira wants his fucking belt back. This man's about to come out on a mission. Islam Makhachev from Russia. When you look at those Russian fighters like Khabib, and there's other notable names, but I'm not going to go down the list right now. You want to. This is going to be a hell of a fight. So it's a great matchup because you have the wrestler slash striking in Islam, and then you have a great striker and submission artist and grappler in Charles Oliveira. So this is going to be a great overall fight. I think they're well-rounded, well-versed in every single aspect. You have another bantamweight title belt fight, and that's Aljamain Sterling versus TJ Dillashaw. This is his second title defense for Aljamain Sterling, going against TJ Dillashaw, who held the belt a long time ago when he had that beef with Cody Garbrandt, and that was a great time when it was like John Jones versus DC beef. And then he got caught. Then TJ Dillashaw got caught for PEDs. He was taking the I can't remember exactly what it was, but something that has to do with your blood, and it just helps you train at higher elevations and things like that. So he was suspended for 2 years, and USADA caught his ass. So now he's back. He's going for a bantamweight title bout. I think it's going to be a hell of a fight. I love TJ Dillashaw's style, but I'm hoping Aljamain Sterling honestly wins in the end. We're going to go down next to another bantamweight fight, this will shape up who's probably going to fight for the belt next. Okay. For that bantamweight division versus Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw. So for whoever wins that, they're going to fight the winner of this next fight, which is Peter Yan versus Sean O'Malley. And whenever you get a Sean O'Malley fight, everyone's going to be looking in. So because he's like the next, I'm not going to say he's the next Conor McGregor in the sense of winning, but he's the next Conor McGregor in the sense of fame,
showmanship,
shit talking, showmanship, YouTube channel popularity. Besides, like, you look at the Patty Pimlets who rock, like, you look at the people who actually tie to their fan base and they try and put on a show and they're backing it up. So it's coming off that last fight, and everybody was let down by it. It was hyped up it was hyped up a lot. Everyone was like super hyped up about it, and there was a doctor stoppage and the fight was over. Still won, still everything was fine, but it's just like that's what everyone's hoping doesn't happen. Taking a look further down the card, you have Benil Dariush, Matuz Gamrot. It's a number 6 versus number 9. I think it'll be a good fight. I'm not going to highlight it on too much because it's not one of the premier fights. But if you want to go down to a premier fight, you look at the women's flyweight belt. Caitlin I can never get her last name right. Shukagian versus Manon Fiort. So that's number 1 versus number 7. I look for Shukagian to honestly get this win in the end here, and I think she's going to dominate. So I'm hoping that flyweight bout's going to show off for you guys. Manon's a high-level fighter and grappler and striker, so I think it's going to be a great fight. She has a 9-1 record. I think it's going to be great how that fight shapes out. And then I'm not going to highlight all of the prelims, but if you take a look at even the last prelim fight, you have Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady. That's a number 5 versus number 8 on the prelim.
Yeah, I see.
That's a high-level fight on the prelim. This card is just loaded. You have Volkan Ozdemir versus Nikita Krylov, number 8 versus number 10 in the light heavyweight division on that prelim card. Like, this card is one of the most loaded card I've ever seen. You have Carol Rosa versus Lena Landsberg and the women's bantamweight division, which is the number 9 versus 12 to kick off the prelims. Like, I haven't seen a card like loaded like this in a long time. It's probably because of the long wait and the hold off that we've had. So I can't wait to see what happens with this card.
Awesome. So for some people, do you think they're going to see this card as great as it is as like a filler card because they want to get to 281?
See, that's the thing. I don't think it's necessarily 100% a filler card because, I mean, if you look at 281, that's a loaded card as well, but I don't think it's as loaded as this card. When you take a look at the fights they have scheduled for this, you have so many ranked fights would shape up the future title belts and the title shots and things like that. So I think in the end, that's what this will pan out being. Is you're going to have a bunch of different movings and stuff in those divisions and rankings. And just overall, I think this is not, I don't think it's a filler. I think this is just a long awaited card because we had a lot of fight nights after a month of no main events. So I think this will be something to get the fans back into the sport because after a long wait over, I feel like a lot of people forgot about the UFC and forgot about MMA because they're like, these aren't a lot of big name fights. These aren't a lot of big name fighters. So they're just happy to see some big name fights going on again.
Okay, okay. If you had to choose what you think the fight of the night is going to be, and it's one fight, so if a casual person could only watch one fight on this card, what would you tell them to watch?
Fight of the night. Ooh, this is hard, kind of. Honestly, I don't know why this is so hard. But decision. Fight of the night. I'm between two fights right now. I'm honestly between the two title fights because I think TJ Dillashaw is going to bring something out of Aljamain Sterling that we haven't seen before. Because fighting someone like TJ Dillashaw is very frustrating. He's a quick fighter. He pushes a tempo, he pushes a pace. And as you've seen with Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling, pace makes Aljamain a little bit uncomfortable. In that first fight, it made him a lot uncomfortable. So I want to see how that pans out. But I think honestly, when you looking down at it, Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev will be the fight of the night. Islam is a dog. He is a tough Russian fighter. And Charles Oliveira got that dog in him. He's someone he's on a mission. He wants his belt back. And he said it over and over again. He wants his belt. He wants what's rightfully his. And he wants to show people why he's the pound for pound number one fighter. I don't think he honestly is, but I think that's
Who
what
do you
he
think
wants to
is?
show people. Oh, the number one pound for pound fighter right now?
Mm-hmm.
Pound for pound. At the moment, honestly, this might surprise some people. I'm gonna go with Alexander Volkanovski. Like out of people that are actively fighting right now, but if we're going for people who might end up being back in the UFC at some point, I'm going to go John Jones always. I'm not going to bet against John Jones. But if we're going in overall performances as of late and that are actively fighting in the UFC, I'm going Alexander Volkanovski. This man is unstoppable. His speed, his power, his technique. I was watching a breakdown video of some of his fights yesterday night actually, and this man has some high complex striking combination. The way he sets things up is just on another level, and he has such long arms for being so short. So his get in and get out time is so beautiful. The way he just plans his attacks. So I think he's the pound for pound right now.
Okay, okay. I respect that. I respect that. When you get off of this card, then obviously we have 281, which we will be back to preview because 281 is massive as well. What other things are going on UFC wise that we may have missed?
So things going on right now in the UFC. It's been kind of like a slowness to UFC because a lot of people haven't been paying attention to these other fights going on because they're not super high level ones. It's not big names. So you have some fighters moving around, doing some weight shifts. You got moving in divisions. You're getting some people who are getting rankings next to their name. There's not too much else going on. We're just starting to I think the UFC is just now starting to kind of push fighters into other things. Starting to set up some cards. I think they just announced today Glover Teixeira versus Jiri Prochazka Part 2. So they're going to fight for that light heavyweight belt again. That was just announced earlier today. So they're starting to set up some future cards. Actually, let me see. I want to double check because I believe that card is actually set up to be right after UFC 281, if I'm not mistaken. But they're just starting to shape up some extra cards, starting to make some things happen as far as matchups, title shots, and things of that nature. So hopefully they can continue to do this. You have the youngest fighter actually was signed, 17 years old. Kid is
Mm-hmm.
17 years old. Look out for this guy. I'm excited for that. So yeah, December 3rd, there's going to be Tuivasa versus Pavlovich, the two fighters who beat Derek Lewis. Hopefully Derek Lewis can come back at some point. You have Kevin Holland actually, who's going to be fighting again. They announced this, I guess, yesterday. Kevin Holland versus Stephen Thompson. Stephen Thompson's fucking back. I don't know if you guys know. Well, most people, if you don't know who Stephen Thompson is, look him up. One of the best karate style fighters in the UFC, if not the best. I love his game. I love what he has to show for it. So just look out for some other things being shaped up by the UFC. More title fight announcements. I look forward to at that UFC 280. They're going to announce some big fights. They're going to announce some bigger cards probably. So look forward to those things happening there in the future.
Gotcha. Chuck, is there anything else going on in the UFC world that we need to be ready for?
Yeah, so I actually did look for Xhaka versus Teixeira, December 10th. Okay. So after that other card, look out for that. That'll be in December. We'll highlight that later. They'll probably end up setting some stuff up for that.
Any John Jones sightings recently?
I haven't seen too much from John Jones lately. I haven't been paying attention to John. So we'll see how that goes. Speaking of news, this is, I guess, kind of tied in. DC stepped back in the cage. I think it was like probably 4 or 5 days ago. He was a special guest referee in WWE Extreme Rules. That was interesting to see. So there's a lot of different things going on. We'll see if DC ends up getting shifted into that the WWE role here soon. I won't be surprised. A lot of ex-UFC fighters keep moving over into UFC and stuff like that. Shout out to the Dallas Cowboys. Go Cowboys. Beat Philly this week. Yankees playing tonight. The game just now started, actually. We go against the Guardians. We're up 1-0. Let's go up 2-0. Shout out Aaron Judge. Pay the man. A special shout out to my wife. She's sick right now. Hope you get better, honey.
Gotta end it on that. With that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Thank you for listening to our MMA expert, Chuck. Make sure you like, rate, comment, subscribe wherever you listen to. Make sure you follow Chuck on Twitter, all social media platforms, especially during UFC fight nights, because if you can't watch it, Chuck will make you feel like you are watching it with the way he breaks it down on Twitter. He's a good follow for MMA fights. Also, make sure you follow him on YouTube and Twitch. Chuck has been consistently streaming his Madden journey. He's already in year 4 of his Madden journey, so make sure you check that out. He goes live on Twitch and then he puts them on YouTube, so definitely be on the lookout for those videos. They are very entertaining. I would recommend watching him from his first season to where he's at now, and you see the growth of his team. So it's been a journey. He's already in year 4, so definitely check him out.
Thank you.
And with that being said, this is the L7C podcast. Signing up. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.